You said one of my favorite words when we were talking when you walked in. You said resentments, that you could do a half an hour on resentments. I know it was an example.
Yeah.
But what would you say?
There's lots of issues around resentment. There's kind of like three phases of it. There's what is a resentment. I've got an event happens. I bump into somebody and I'm unhappy about it. And being an addict, I take it too far. Now that in itself is not quite a resentment, but an hour later, I'm still thinking about it. And then the next morning, I've got this tremendous resentment. I'll get even. That's a resentment. That's when I'm sitting on the little hamster cage. I'm running like crazy and like a hamster, and I'm not going anywhere. The brain is completely taken over by a resentment. That's a very dangerous resentment.
The best dictionary, and when you look up the definition of a word, you might get 1,000 different answers depending on the source. But the one that I thought fit for recovery was a resentment is a lingering feeling of having been wronged. And I think that's really great, as opposed to, I really ask you not to kick me in the shins, with that ottoman for the fourth time. But I'm talking about, I go, that second grade teacher. I'm 64 years old right now, and I'm still chewing on something that happened in the 60s. I think we can call that a lingering feeling of having been wronged. While we're on the topic there, Bob?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that resentments cause is that if I'm preoccupied with something that happened in the past, then it prevents me from doing whatever I'm doing at the moment.
Right on.
I have spent days before working in my yard, doing this and that, having conversations with somebody that, one of those, here's what I should have said. And it kind of sours my day. And the worst part about it is that the person that I'm having these conversations with in my head is not even aware of it. He's off living his life, having fun.
I just heard a guy with about 40 years say something I'd never heard before, 40 years in recovery, that I'd never heard before. He said, don't have a conversation with somebody who's not in the room. I thought, what? And I this is a few months ago, I heard him say that. Well, that's pretty good. And I live alone. So I have found myself, God, Richard said not to do that, and I'm doing it. He's so right. Talk about a waste of time. And it does get the stomach acid going. And I don't need stress. Stress is a killer. And there's things that I could be, none of you guys is still in high school. We're I don't want to use the term old farts, but it wouldn't be much of a stretch.
We're well past that.
Thank you. And don't you guys think the most precious thing becomes time and energy after a while?
It absolutely.
When you're 20, you got 1 billion days in front of you and 1 billion hours to fritter away. My dad, when he was in his 70s, said he felt like he was having breakfast every 15 minutes. It's like, how much time do we really have that we're not asleep or eating or driving to work? It becomes these little chunks of, I got an hour here, I better get something out of this hour.
Yeah, then we want to don't sweat the small stuff. And that's a resentment when you're sweating the small stuff, usually.
Well, if we're going to be specific to the recovery literature that I am governed by, or on a good day, it says, we're mad at my wife because she's attentioning Mr. Brown and she wants the house put in her name. To me, that's big potatoes. If whatever attentioning was in the 1930s, and I think I know what it was, and they want the house that I'm paying for in their name, I got a fucking problem, actually. Or then the next example it gives is, my boss is thinking about firing me for drinking on the job and padding the expense account. I'm like, wait just a second. I'm stealing. I'm drunk on the job. This guy's paying me, and he's thinking about firing. Well, what an asshole this boss is. Mm-hmm. So they don't in listing resentments. They don't make a big distinction between the good ones and the bad ones. It's like if they're hogging up your time and your hours and your brain, what are we going to do about it?
Well, there's a lot of tools. One is we may be powerless of what happens, but we can manage our expectations. Expectations set up resentments. An example is I'm going to drive down to another city, and I know that takes me an hour. And if I give myself 59 minutes and I'll make up the time, and then I hit construction, I'm angry at construction. Why? Because I expected everything to go smoothly. And if I can manage my expectation of, shit may happen.
Did you look? I'm going to pick up on that specific because I just learned something new. I heard a guy say something like that. And by the way, I've lived a lot of my life in Los Angeles, so the traffic there is just like this given,
Fact of life.
monster under the bed.
Yeah.
You don't friggin' know, but what it might take you all day to get from Pasadena to the beach and back. It might take you all day to go 30 miles that way and 30 miles back. Here in New Mexico, not so much.
San Francisco Bay Area.
That place is murder to drive in.
Yes.
And when I did my driving in the Bay Area, there wasn't GPS yet, and I'm not from there. So one missed exit or one false move, or if you're in the city, you can see the building you're supposed to get to, and you're like, it's about 45 minutes away. It's a mile, but it'll be 40. But how about this? You're not late until you're late. By that, it meant this thing you're talking about. But I can stress pretty. I lived on airplanes for a lot of years, so I don't do late, man. I'll do early, but I don't do late.
Right.
And if I'm like, I had a 10 o'clock appointment to record with you guys. Flat tires do happen. Dogs swallowing something do happen. So it's possible I might have been at home, phone dead, flat tire, I'm boned. But I'm not late until I'm late. So I might still make it by 10. Or I might get here at 10:10, and you're having the same kind of morning I've had, and you haven't even called. So why did I waste all that stomach? It may sound like nothing, but this deal of, people will drink or drug over a broken shoelace more than the death of their parent. It's really true for us. We've all heard these stories, yeah? Or experienced them.
We get annoyed with the person in front of us in the grocery line that's saying they're counting out change to pay for the groceries.
We're
my
writing a check.
My favorite is you're in my way. Now I'm out here on a road that I didn't build, but you're in my way. I'm like, how did this road become property of Sherman? I don't know. That's my brain isn't fixed yet. I've been at this a while, and I don't know about y'all, but I left the factory with no brakes. I got a pretty good engine, pretty good steering. I got no fucking brakes, and my wiring is not the best. And it seems like the wiring gets better over time, but not all the way, and not.
Well, one of the things that really helps with resentment is meditation.
Yes.
And that's because the thought comes up. Now, my first thought, it's just a total mess. It's nasty. My first thought's usually illegal. The second thought's immoral. The third thought's downright rude and snide. Around the fourth or fifth thought, there might be a spiritual principle that sneaks in there. If I meditate a fair amount, then I get that recovery filter between the action and that event.
You have the aspect of somebody who meditates a fair amount. Do you do it every day? Is it part of your deal? Your regimen? It's not my Bob. How you doing there? I kind of suck at it. How you doing?
I've tried to meditate. I have not been successful at it. But what I did want to say about resentments, I think there are basically two major types of resentments. The resentment that's justified and the resentment that's just silly. If somebody steps on my shoe and scuffs it and I spend all day worrying about that, that's a silly resentment. The justified resentments are, as a child, I was abused by a stepfather.
Yeah.
I was bullied by kids. And in those cases, I think the best tool to deal with those is forgiveness. Because forgiveness primarily is a gift that we give ourselves. And in forgiving those people that we resent, we free ourselves of the resentment and we can move on with our day.
Man, you guys are smart. This is good stuff. The thing I heard about forgiveness that's new in my learning was that if there's a person that I'm still hot at from something from a long time ago, I'm connected to them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that forgiveness, your way of describing it was a gift I give myself. I don't think I'd heard it put that way. But if I can cut that connection, it's not always easy to put into words what feelings are and stuff. But
I'm with Bob on this.
Yeah.
It's like the old Arab proverb: if you go out to kill somebody, dig 2 graves. The moment you want to hold somebody down for something, you're down there with them. And if you want to get up off the ground, you got to let go of them.
And another smart guy I know says that you're not what's the word? You're not endorsing what happened to you or approving of it. You're just letting go of it.
Forgiveness does not mean that you endorse it. Yes, that's a big piece. But it does mean letting go. Letting go is hard for us. We don't let go without claw marks all over.
Well, that's no shit. And I've done my share of inventories and the list, and with the guidance of good sponsorship. But my brain's funny. I told y'all I left with some bad wiring. And so I'll wake up some Wednesday morning 1,000 miles from where the scene of the crime was, pissed off at what that person did to me a long time ago. And I have an old timer said, you can say, hey, I already dealt with that one. We're good. Let that one go. And I thought that's a good thought that, if one of those old ones just pops up for no reason that I can point to, you're allowed to go, been down the road with this one. I did everything. If there was something that needed to be done on my side, I forgave them. Just having one of those mornings where my brain's acting a little funny and I'm pissed off about that teacher, that boss, that ex. I don't know about y'all, but old ones pop up in my brain from time to time.
Well, there's a tool to deal with old ones. And, you sit there and you wrote out the inventory. And I was abused as a child, a lot. And what I did was then I sat and rewrote what would happen today with the tools I have and the people I have today.
What do you mean?
If somebody were to come over and try to abuse me, I'm an adult. I'm not that child anymore. Secondly, I've got my home group. I got homies that will support me. I'm not an isolated child by myself who has no defenses. Not being stuck back there is part of letting go of the resentment. You have to look at, okay, what would happen today? So this won't ever happen again. That's the underlying fear of recovering from child abuse is I'm not good enough. Something bad could happen again. The fact of the matter is, if you're in recovery for a little while, that doesn't happen your first year. But if you get into recovery deeply, it's not going to happen again. You've already made that change. You're not that person who's going to put themselves in that position. It's a tool. So I actually sit and rewrite the inventory with the tools. If my stepfather were to show up today, he can't do shit to me. And it's important to actually put that down in writing.
Interesting.
And that cements it in place. Going, I'm free. That's a fear I don't have to have anymore.
Some not nice things happened to me as a kid too, for sure. I'm learning that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only. I've seen a lot of nodding heads around this table. I still have the thoughts that I have. And when I think about people doing wrong to kids, that is sort of in a separate category from some of the other resentments and fears and things that I've been through. Been stolen from. All right, I've been stolen from. I had one sponsor who, I think it was like in my first year. I think I was doing my first written inventory. And I think we were on forgiveness. I think we're up in that territory, probably working on an 8th step or something. He would when I'd say, so and so did so and so to me, and I'm still fucking hot about it, he'd go, okay, and he goes, just did you ever do that to anybody or something like it? And that is probably in the 95 percentile. Have I stolen in my life? Yes, I have. Have I lied in my life? Yes, I have. Have I unjustifiably aroused jealousy in a loved one? Yes, I have. And so that takes some of the the heat out of it. If you figure out, oh shit, I've done it too. Something about that changed the temperature. Does that make sense? It didn't.
You're right. If you take the heat down, as you say, in 95%, because that's the stuff that we did, and there seems to be a difference between forgiving something or forgiving a person or having somebody come in who wants to be a sponsee who's done a sex crime versus a violence crime.
I see.
We have those, we almost put that in a different category, and
I've never experienced that.
That's a mistake to do that, in my opinion. We're all screwed up, and that manifests itself in a lot of different ways. I mean, in the inventories that I've read, the 5 steps I've been privileged to be a part of, sex is always a piece of it.
Sure.
Either people were abused, or either they did the abuse, or they were abused, or both. Often both. And that's one of the things we do in recovery is we break the chain.
Have you listened to 5 Steps? Have you sponsored guys? Many?
Many.
Yeah. My experience has been it's all the same old shit. Now I always if I'm giving a talk, where I've been asked to tell my story and we get to that, I will include I have not heard a murder or something really heinous, a sex crime, something like that. So that might change my my feeling about it. But what I mostly hear is, oh, you slept with your wife's sister. Gee, there's a shocker. Oh, you padded your expense account and bought a bottle of whiskey and claimed that you spent it on gasoline. Another shocker. The shit we do drunk is the stuff we do drunk. The inventories in sobriety are a little more, ouch. They're shorter and like, well, I wasn't drunk. I don't find the stuff that guys have confessed to me, if you want to use that word, very, very surprising or very whatever. It's the same old, same old. The only one that I thought was pretty good, I had a guy say that he woke up one day from a blackout. And I'm a blackout drunk myself. I used to peek through the blinds to see if it got home and in what kind of shit. And by the way, I did my heaviest drinking like in the 70s in Texas. So the cars we drove then were very durable. If you were driving a used car in the 70s, you could pretty much drive through a lake and get home. This morning, if I back my Honda into a chain link fence, I'm out about $8,000. This is not the world I was brought up in. And so this guy woke up from a blackout and he had in his possession a stolen Mercedes, and he had no idea the story behind it. But he did have tools. So, I don't know, I'm not a big tool guy, but I guess he had a Sawzall or, I don't know, plasma cutter, I don't know. So, and he chopped this thing to smithereens, and he had a shed out in the middle of nowhere. So he put this car in a billion bits in a shed, and there it sits, and he goes, I don't know what to do about it. Mm-hmm. I said, bro, I don't know what to do about it either, but that is some funny shit. That was here I am 20 years later thinking about that one. None of this other stuff stuck with me, but somewhere in Dog Dick, Texas, there's a Mercedes in 3 million bits. So I let it, I don't think we did anything on that one except have a laugh. So any 5th steps that you listened to that worth saying anything about?
I sponsored a man for well over 20 years
you did. Interesting.
That suffered from crippling depression and the associated anxiety and paranoia. And he was told one time early on that if he said his first sponsor said that if you are currently working on a step, then you won't get high. And so he made sure that he was currently working on a step. And so almost manically, we would cycle through the steps over and over again. And it reached a point where he read one inventory to me, and some of the things he was writing about was he told a person he was going to give her a book when he was done reading, and he forgot to do that. And I thought, oh, Johnny, this, you're all right. You're all right. This inventory is, you're not doing anything wrong. Let's just do 10, 11, and 12 for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And another time somebody did confess to me that he murdered somebody.
Oh, shit.
I didn't know what to do with
I don't
that.
know what to do.
I didn't know what to do with that. In most cases,
That's fucking heavy, Bob. What do you do?
Yeah, it was a drive-by. He was a skinhead, and it was a drive-by shooting. I immediately went to step 8 and step 9. How do we make amends for this? How do we make, unless it causes harm to ourselves or to somebody else. He had a wife and a family, and this guy was like the quintessential family man, had 2 daughters and loved his family to death. He confesses to a murder, goes to prison, loses his business, what happens to his family. And now I know that if a priest hears in a confession that somebody's murdered somebody, he tells him, you need to go turn yourself in. And I didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, that has happened to me too.
It has?
It has.
What the hell?
Well,
2 out of 3 in this room. Wow. Amazing. No, I don't know. What'd you do?
the person was responsible. It was a gang fight. He's quite sure that the guy died because he cut his throat. That type of violence. And for myself, I gave out a lot of drugs. I was a chemist, so I frequently had big piles of drugs, and so I would sometimes hand them out, and people would take them and drive into trees, overdose.
You were handing out the good stuff there. All right.
So I looked at it from my point of view. I indirectly caused a lot of death. So how do I go? So I committed for a lifetime of H&I. I can't bring those people back,
Okay.
but I can try to prevent other people from dying. And so that was the amends that I gave to him, and it's the amends I give to myself. It is, for me, service is not just a commitment, it is a lifestyle. It's how I live. That's my amends for this. Because there's heavy shit. You get into the drug culture, there's violence, theft is the littlest of it sometimes.
Right.
And
No, that's small potatoes. But it has the power to actually kill. If I'm drinking or drugging over my feelings, I can end up just fucking dead. It doesn't matter if the feelings were generated by I stole a car, or something that's not murder. We do 30-minute episodes, and we're heading in. One thing I do want to say, just because it's lighter and it's on the topic, my sponsor is a criminal attorney, second generation. He's quite a guy. And I was writing a work of fiction that involved an old murder, like from the 1950s. I had a technical question. I don't have any legal background, but my sponsor does. He's got a PhD in that shit. I'm not going to say his name. I went to my sponsor and said, hey, sponsor, when you're defending a murder defendant, if I said that right, you know what I'm saying. And in the course of doing your job, it starts to occur to you, this son of a bitch is guilty as hell and no mistake. And I said, have you crossed a line and now you're obligated to go flip on him? Yeah. And my sponsor looked at me and said, Sherman, is it your impression that I only defend innocent people? I felt about an inch long, like, I guess I have my answer on that one. Yeah. So that's when it becomes, the cop's handwriting on the ticket he wrote doesn't, he usually uses red ink and this is green ink. So let's throw this murder case out. Like, God, okay, that's all that stuff's about.
Yeah, we're not judge and jury.
Well, and I would assume, look, Here's what I like to say when a question about drugs or murder or something comes up. My degree is in fine arts. I don't know anything about chemistry. I don't know anything that my sponsor knows about the legal system. I'm a kid from the suburbs who wrecked his life with drugs and alcohol and got into recovery, and my life's been pretty goddamn good ever since. That's my expertise. But I would assume, I don't know you guys well. I've spent, an hour with you in a room all total. If one of y'all, after we shut off the recorder, said, I actually did kill somebody in high school, that wouldn't hold up in court. I can't go downtown and knock on the police door and go, hey man, I just talked to a guy who said he killed somebody in 1977. Go get him! It doesn't work like that. So, we're off the hook. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to finish with this. I agree, and I've watched you guys in action. You walk the walk. And the way our paths crossed was you're getting hundreds of books of recovery. Is it to the prison system? It is, isn't it?
Yes.
And I didn't know that it has to be soft cover. And I thought, well, is that because you whip a man's ass with a hardcover? But it's because the staples are used for...
They can hide stuff in the binding.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can take the binding and make it into a weapon.
The binding?
Yes. That hard cover.
The spine? Or
Not
the cover?
spine, the cover itself. Yeah.
How are people so good at this stuff? Well, I guess you got a lot of time on your hands.
They make a bomb out of the red suit of a deck of playing cards. They're very resourceful.
You should see
Was that a joke?
No.
Or is that true?
They're very resourceful. That part might be an exaggeration.
I didn't know. I don't know what chemicals are in red ink. I don't know.
I heard the expression before.
All right.
They make tattoos out of that. There is a museum of artifacts that they have confiscated that is really amazing to see what type of weapons.
Here locally?
Yeah.
We're recording in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Well, not in Santa Fe, but I believe it's in Las Cruces.
And it's shit they found at a contraband museum or something? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they.
I'm going. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
They use it for. Well, you're inside. They use it for training. You have to get cleared.
It's fantastic. You guys, this half hour has flown by. Thank you for the service you're doing out there in the world. And anything you want to get off your chest before it stops?
This is my first podcast. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed talking to you. It was fun.
Right on.
Hugs and love to one and all.
All right. You guys are awesome. I'm out.